evening. How are you? My name is Michael Como. I am also on steering for Long Island Activists. I was a Sanders 2016 delegate for CD3. And my question actually relates to something that was published earlier, I believe yesterday in Newsday, where it had quoted you as saying that you are very much still in support of the IDC. That's the Independent Democratic Caucus. It's an organization that caucuses, in name, is in fact a Democratic caucus, but does caucus with the state Senate Republicans.
Boo, if I may add. Boo.
You surely can. And so my question here actually relates to recent proceedings that occurred at the New York State Democratic meeting. So the bylaws meeting that occurred just a couple of weeks ago, in which the New York State Progressive Caucus also paired up with a number of other elected officials to condemn the IDC, who many feel are in fact the biggest stumbling block for the passage of the New York Health Act. So there's the New York Single Payer Act. In light of the IDC's efforts to block what could be a great boon to the overall public health of people in the state of New York, what is your present opinion on the IDC? And I say this from the vantage point of somebody who has been on numerous occasions called a not Democrat, in part because of my support for the senator from Vermont. So as to say that divisiveness has become a very important topic within the party. Yet I see that there are a great many folks who have lined up behind the IDC, and I think that if there are questions of purity or what have you, we really ought to be exploring those who are in fact blockading what is overwhelmingly popular legislation within the party. So your opinion?
So my opinion right now, so that quote that was used in the article was a quote from 2012.
Is it still current?
So I'm going to answer the question.
Please do.
Nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you.
So now we're going to have an opportunity if Phil Boyle wins, and I've been in discussions with the Senate Democrats about candidate selection as well as the Working Families Party. I've asked them to come forward with names. If you saw, there were a bunch of names mentioned for that position. Several elected officials, including former elected official Pat Halpin, who's here tonight. I don't have a position on the IDC. As it exists now, the reason why I supported, just to tell you why I supported the IDC, was because in 2009, they passed something called the MTA tax, which caused us to lose a very bright young man who was a county legislator at the time from Brookhaven named Brian Biedenbender. And Brian had nothing to do with the MTA tax, but the Republicans ran the campaign against him based on the support of the Democrats in the state Senate and the state Assembly. And so that really annoyed me. When I had discussions with the leadership, they said, well, we had to do that. And I said, well, you're not taking into consideration our concerns out here and what our residents want. And so they kind of blew us off. And I said, well, then we're going to support candidates who support the suburban agenda, which was very important to us at the time, as opposed to candidates who are going to support the general consensus out of the caucus. That has continued through several leaders, two of which have gone to jail since the beginning of the Democrats, Malcolm Smith and John Sampson. Now we're dealing with two leaders who are very credible, and Andrea Stewart-Cousins and Mike Gianaris, who runs the campaign side of the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee. I spoke to Mike this morning, so I'm working with him, and I met with Lisa Tyson last week. She is the head of the Long Island Progressive Coalition, but also she stands in as the director of the Long Island Working Families Party, and so we're working with them to come up with a candidate.
This is to say, what is your present position on the IDC? I mean, is it something that you are intending on supporting? And broadly speaking, what is your position on the New York Health Act?
So I just told you my position on the IDC is I'm supporting a candidate who's going to get elected and sit with the Democrats,
right?
Not the IDC.
Right.
So now I need to come up with that candidate.
Sure.
And that's why I'm asking if any of you have a candidate. You saw names mentioned in the paper. Those are people who have not fully committed or said that they're interested, but I'm in the process of talking to them. In fact, one other name came up, and I saw her walk in, Kim Jean-Pierre, who's our assemblywoman from Babylon. But if you have another name of somebody who you think would be a strong candidate, send that person my way ASAP, because this election could either be in November, this November, it could be a special in February or March, or it could be on the ballot next November, which is more time. I don't have a position on the New York Health Act. I met with Ron and got some information. So I don't have a current position on it myself. That doesn't mean that a candidate who's going to run, because I'm not running for the state senate. They asked me to run for the seat. I live in the district. I'm a homebody. I like local. I'm not interested in running for that. So I don't have a position on that. But the candidate who we run will have a position on that, and they'll be supportive of that.
That's fantastic. Thank you. I would hope that that the Suffolk Democrats do in fact come out publicly and very vocally in favor of the New York Health Act.
Right, but let me just tell you. So the way it works is we let the elected officials do that.
Oh, absolutely.
As the party chair, I don't say this is our position.
Right.
So we let the elected officials, so people like Dwayne or Kim, they take the position and then they advance the position. Okay?
Very well. Thanks so much. I'm totally
Yes, thank you. And if you have a candidate, let me know.
I might be one day.
Okay.